Welcome. So today we're going to do a Valentine's menu. For the starter we're going to have a great salad. It's roast sourdough bread with roast tomatoes, roast onions and a great dressing. Really simple but really nice. Main course, going to do duck with a plum sauce and Dauphinoise potatoes. And for the dessert we're going to make a melt in the middle chocolate pudding. Right, great Valentine's menu. So let's start. We can start with the potatoes because they take the longest essentially, and this was designed so that people could make it more or less within an hour from start to finish. All right, because you don't want to be in the kitchen when it's Valentine's Day. So in the saucepan I've got some just some regular cream and some milk, and I'm going to put some cream in. All right, so 300 mils of each, and that's going to go on the heat. We want to simmer that, but before it simmers we're going to flavour that just with some thyme that goes in. And we're going to put some garlic in, really important in Dauphinoise potatoes. So remember, the way to do garlic is to take the ends off. Just want to peel the paper off, like that. And actually, because we're going to strain this, you don't need to slice this too finely. So just want to literally give this a quick kind of smash, right? To get the knife flat, give it a smash like that. That will release the flavour, and we drop those into the cream and the milk, and literally a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt, and we're just going to allow that just to come to the heat. What I've done previously is I've cut some potatoes and I've cut them nice and thin. All right, you want them kind of medium, basically so they kind of wibble a little bit. There's a little bit of movement in there, and put them in. Run some cold water over them, get rid of the starch. Okay, what we're then going to do is we're going to get a baking tin of whatever size is going to be suitable for the amount that you're making. And what we're going to do is, while the cream and everything is heating up, I'm just going to layer the potatoes in the tin. So just literally one layer goes in there. And what we're then going to do is again season with a bit of salt and pepper, really important. A bit of salt. Or a bit of pepper even. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put some more potato on top to kind of make it a nice different layers. Okay, season again. Some recipes have cheese in Dauphinoise. You really don't need cheese in Dauphinoise, purely because it's not traditional anyway, but purely because the amount of cream in there, it's just too much. All right, it becomes too heavy. Otherwise, all right, I've still got room, so I'm going to do one more layer. So one more layer of potatoes. You need a little bit of a gap at the top, otherwise it's going to boil over in the oven, which is never good. There we go. So one final little season. And a bit more salt. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. And with this, we literally just want to bring it to the boil, just so it just starts to heat up. You don't want to boil it like mad, otherwise it will get a slightly burnt flavour, which obviously we don't want. But we're just infusing the flavours. And all I'm going to do, okay, that's good. I can just see a little bit of movement in there. So now that's hot. The oven's on. All right, it's fairly low. It's 160, which is about gas mark 4 on gas, so it's electric. It's 160. It takes about an hour, all right, to cook these, because obviously it's potato. And we're gently going to pour the cream mixture. So we're filtering out the garlic, but it's infused the flavour, and we want to do it right to the top. Okay, there we go. Give that a little push down. As that cooks, that will all kind of melt down nicely. Right, so in the oven, 1 hour. And that's the potatoes done. We're now going to do the starter. So, the starter is, as I said, tomato, onion, sourdough, and this thing called Burrata, which is kind of similar to mozzarella, but as you'll see, it's kind of is wetter inside, but it is an Italian cheese. This is absolute simplicity. We also need some virgin olive oil and a bit of sherry vinegar as well. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's move these out of the way for 1 second, is we are going to, let's do the onion first. Right, so like normally, take the top off the onion. I'm going to cut it in half through the roots. Just want to peel the onion. Because this is only in the oven for about 15 minutes or so, you want to cut this quite thin, but we want to do it in wedges, all right? So I'm going to just slightly take the root off. And what I want to do is cut this into fairly thin wedges, all right? So work our way around. Okay, there's that. Take that end off. Okay, so that's the onion. Move that just there. With the tomatoes, you can use any tomatoes you like, but the same kind of idea. Go for different colours, different types. So you've got some nice sort of green tomatoes here. These are really sweet. Cut them in half. Again, want them in wedges. All right, so they're going to cook roughly the same time as the tomatoes. This is for 2 people, I guess logically. All right, so let's use some of these also. See, some varieties is good to get different colours as well. And I'm actually going to do nothing else with these tomatoes, just leave these ones whole because they're small. Okay, so with the sourdough, we just want to cut a nice kind of decent slice. Sourdough is a really nice bread, really kind of chewy, which is what you want. So let's do probably a couple of decent slices of sourdough. 1 baking tin, very old baking tin, but works well. And all we're going to do is literally put everything on the baking tin. All right, so if you haven't got a big enough baking tin, so it's single layer, then you might need to use two baking tins possibly. And the tomatoes go there. With the bread, literally, just going to tear these. Just want big, chunky sourdough croutons. Okay, so just break those up like that. Okay, so we have some sherry vinegar. What we're going to do, just sprinkle over a little bit of sherry vinegar. That just gives a little bit of tartness. Some seasoning, a bit of pepper, decent bit of salt, and then some olive oil, all right, which is going to bake. And that's going to go in the oven for kind of 15-20 minutes, all right? You want the tomatoes just to soften and the small ones to burst, and you want the bread to be nice and crispy. So that's going to go in the oven about 15 minutes. Okay. Right, we're now actually going to start with dessert. May start forming the dessert because we need to melt some chocolate, and that does take a little bit of time. So, to melt the chocolate, for the melting middle chocolate, we're going to use what's called a bain-marie. So we have a bowl, and in here is 350 grams of dark chocolate. This is about 72% cocoa. And what you do is you put it in a saucepan with water, make sure the water doesn't touch the bottom of the bowl, and we're going to put that on. As the water heats, it will melt the chocolate, so it's nice and soft and melted. Okay. So now we're going to make the chocolate, or the melt in the middle chocolate puddings. So in my bowl I have some caster sugar, and I'm going to whisk that together with some butter. Then going to add the eggs for vanilla, put the flour in, fold in the chocolate, and there we go. Okay. As there's a very high percentage of sugar and butter, you just want to kind of mix it through. We're now going to add, let's turn that down slightly. Just going to add the first egg. And mix it in. Do 1 egg at a time, otherwise it would probably split. And the second egg. Okay, at that point, you can probably add the last 2 eggs actually, be fine. When the chocolate's melting quite vigorously, it's worth kind of turning it over, just so it doesn't burn on the bottom. Okay, so all now we do is add a little bit of vanilla, about a teaspoon of vanilla, nice back flavour. Remember, always try and use extract if you can rather than essence. Essence is chemicals, extract actually will have some vanilla in it. Flour, note this tiny amount of flour. Essentially what a melted middle chocolate cake actually is an uncooked chocolate cake. Alright, but a little bit of flour just to keep it all together. I'm going to mix that in. While the chocolate is still melting, just show you how to prepare the tins. You can use for this ramekins or individual serving. It's important you put a little bit of paper in the bottom, because if you don't, you'll probably never get them out. All right, they won't just plop out. If a little bit of chocolate gets stuck on the top, it will just break as it comes out, which is obviously not what you want. So what you're going to do, the only real way of doing this is a little bit fiddly, but just with a pencil, just want to trace, or a pen, just trace around the bottom 2 circles, so and just cut them out, all right? And then we're going to butter both the ramekins really well. Okay, so that's one. Okay, there we go. Let's put those in there. What we're now going to do, as I said, is butter no particular amount, just a little bit of butter in each one, just to rub it round, just so it doesn't stick. Okay, and then we just put the disc in the bottom. When you're stirring the chocolate with anything, make sure you don't introduce any water, because that will have not a great effect on the chocolate. It will kind of go strange, and you can't then recover it, and also don't burn the chocolate, because likewise, once chocolate is burnt, you can't do anything with it at all. So we're nearly there. Why did I say something about this? Okay, so I'm actually going to put this baking sheet in the oven before anything goes on it, because what happens is you actually want that immediate heat when you put the ramekins on. Right, so I'm going to preheat the baking sheet and the oven to 180 degrees, about gas mark 5. All right, and then once this is ready, I can put the ramekins on this hot tray, and that will actually help to speed up the cooking as well. Right, okay, so the chocolate's now melted. Just obviously because you've got boiling water underneath, be really careful. So tea towel, turn the heat off, take it actually off the heat, and then you want to, with the tea towel, take it off, and there's all the steam. Right, so what we then want to do is we're going to pour the chocolate into the eggs, sugar and the butter mixture. This is really good. One of these plastic scrapers work really well. So pour that into there, and then we're just going to fold, just mix that in together. When you mix it, you'll see the mixture seizes a little bit, it goes a little bit thicker when you put it in, sort of a bit more moussey like. All consistently chocolate. Okay, there we go. Now I've made more than the 2, okay, but I'm just going to literally fill these up. So make sure they're buttered, remember, make sure the paper's in there. So I'm just going to pour this in. You want to fill it about 3/4, any more it will overfill. Okay. So there we go. And they're going to go in the oven for 12 minutes, which is known as very specific. For 12 minutes on the hot tray. Okay. Right, so let's look at the starter now. The tomatoes, onions, sourdough have already been there for about 15 or so minutes. So what we're looking for, this is cooked, they're burst, this is crispy, all good. What we're now going to do is open the burrata. I'm just going to show you, let me just open this. So just like mozzarella, it's stored in a liquid. And, whoops, kind of looks like a balloon. When you cut into it, it will be quite liquidy. Okay, but that's absolutely fine. That's exactly how it should be. So what we're now going to do then is just place some of this on the, okay, so no particular order. Let's do some tomatoes. You could do this as a sharing plate or do it as individual, whatever, you know, whenever you like really. Some of the tomatoes, some of the croutons on top. Okay, what I'm going to do now with the burrata, just going to chop it into some small bits. You could use mozzarella if you can't actually always get this Italian cheese. Right, all we then do is a little bit of olive oil. So that's going to taste absolutely amazing. It's a really nice light dish to start a meal because the duck is quite rich with the plum sauce and Dauphinoise and the chocolate pudding to finish. So a nice light starter. Hope you enjoy it. So now we're going to make the duck in plum sauce or with plum sauce. We're going to do the plum sauce first because that takes kind of 15 minutes to simmer. Really simple. So in a pan, I've got 50 grams of brown sugar. And what I'm going to do is put in there some beef stock. So 300 mils of beef stock. I know this is water, but I'll put some water in initially and then put some beef cube in. These beef cubes are pretty good now actually. You can use obviously beef stock, but these beef cubes are a pretty good equivalent actually. What we're now going to do is just put some butter in as well, not just a little knob of butter, because so it makes it nice and glossy. And just a little stalk of thyme goes in as well. And we're going to chop a shallot. This is called a banana shallot. I'm going to try and chop it as fine as you can, otherwise you're going to have a chunky sauce or chunky bits of onion in the sauce that we don't want. All right, let's cut that in half. Okay, so we're going to chop this as fine as you can. You can just use onion for this, but shallot has a nice kind of mixture of onion and garlic flavour as well. So nice and fine. Okay, that's probably fine for what we need. So that then can go in the pan as well. Alright, obviously we've need the plums. So this is about 200 grams of plums, thereabouts, which equates to about 4 plums. So we just want to take the stone out. We'll cut these in segments rather than quarters. Try and keep it chunky, so because you want to see the plum in the sauce when we're done. Okay, so that's 2. This mixture will simmer for around 15 minutes, and obviously it will reduce and the sugar will help to thicken and caramelise. Okay, last one. Then we need about 50 mils of red wine. Any red wine, really. So just 50 mils, that's fine. Okay, just give it a nice kind of bit of back bite. That's now going to simmer for the next 15 minutes. Okay. So, our chocolate puddings are done. You've got two choices here. If you're a bit edgy about taking them out of the ramekin or the tin, well, certainly if you use a ramekin, you could serve them without any problem at all, just in the ramekin, if you're a bit edgy whether they're done or not. However, let's see how we're going to do. So, because you've got the paper in the bottom, they should actually come out with hopefully without too much problem. Just to make sure, with a knife, just go around the outside. We did butter them as well, if you remember. Okay, let's upside down. There we go, take the paper off. One chocolate pudding. Right, let's see. Just remember, if it's not melted in the middle, the world won't end, it'll still taste amazing. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so then we're going to do the duck. So we have our duck here. Whoops. Okay, now obviously ducks are really fatty meat, but what we can do is we need to render down the fat. All right, so the way we do that is in a saucepan, just add some oil, not much because obviously there's fat in the duck already, and let's just turn that on. And the way to do this then is to score the duck fat. You want quite a few scores. Now the idea of scoring the meat is that the heat penetrates through and will render the fat a bit quicker. So if you say just render that. If there's any excess fat, for example, say here, that's just excess fat, so it's always worth probably trimming that anyway, just to try and get rid of it. All right, so we're going to score. So what you're going to do, you're going to fry these skin side down for around 6 minutes. Okay, and when you don't have to touch them or turn them, you're just going to fry them for around 6 minutes. Okay, and then while that's happening, our sauce is still cooking. Little jiggle. We can take the sauce off now. If you can see it's boiled down, if you use a spoon, you want it, as it boils down, the natural sugar and the caramelisation of the demerara actually will make this, it won't go thick, but you want it to be obviously thick in the water. Right, give it a taste as always. Don't need salt and pepper, no. At that point, take out the thyme twig, put that away, and then that can be reheated later. You can actually freeze that as well. All right, so there's the sauce done. Okay, so after about 5-6 minutes, what you're looking for is the skin to be nice and dark and brown. Turn it over. At this point, you're going to add a little piece of butter, some thyme, so we now want to coat the duck breast in the butter and the thyme just for a minute or so, just so it's all nice and covered in that flavour. We want to get ready ourselves a little roasting tin. These will go in the oven for 5 minutes if you want them rare, 10 minutes if you want them well done, or halfway if you want them somewhere in the middle. Okay, so literally everything goes in a baking tin, like this. You want to put everything over, all the excess juice, it's all flavour there as well. Okay, and that's going to go in the oven, like I said, for 5 minutes for rare, but it will be very rare, very pink, or you want 10 minutes for more well done, kind of medium to well. In the oven we go. Okay, so let's see how we're doing. This has now been in for about 8 minutes. Quite difficult to tell, to be fair, but give it a squeeze. If there's too much give, it's too spongy, then it will be really rare. If it's still quite firm, it means it's going to be more well done, right? That's the way that you tell. Meat needs to sit, not for long, a minute or two, just to let that sit. So I'll put that over there. Let's check the potato. Turn the oven off. Okay, so there's our potato. We want to check it's done because obviously, so they're not raw potatoes. Put a knife in, that's nice and cooked. So let's just put this together. So obviously any plate, white plate, slate, doesn't matter. I thought we'd use a slate just because it may look a little bit better. So let's put some potato on. Just a portion. This could be a sharing plate. You do a large platter of this and people, and you help yourselves, or do it individual, whatever's going to work for you. So let's clean that. Oops. I'll see how the duck's cooked. Lots of ways you can cut duck, you can do it straight down. It's always better really if you do longer slices. Cut it on the angle, right? If you see actually that's pretty good. All right, so it's cooked, but it isn't cooked all the way through. It's still a little bit pink. If you could cut it or cook it all the way through, it can be a bit dry sometimes and a bit chewy, which is obviously what we don't want. So there's the duck. And with the plum sauce, just want a little spoonful. You could have this in a separate bowl or jug if you wanted to. Just a little bit of duck on the side, duck sauce or plum sauce on the side. Bit of drizzle. There we go. So there we go. As our final dish, our main course, it is our roast duck with a plum sauce and Dauphinoise potatoes. Enjoy.